Imagine you could step into a time machine and meet your future self. What would it say to you? Would it be proud of the choices you've made so far, or would it urge you to change course? The idea of meeting your future self sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie, right? But what if that were possible? What if you could change the course of your life simply by having a conversation with the person you're destined to become? How would that influence the decisions you make today? Let's explore this mind-blowing concept together. The grandfather paradox. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to travel back in time? The idea of stepping into a time machine and seeing the past unfold before your eyes captures everyone's imagination. But with time travel comes a fascinating and often confusing question. What if you could meet your future self? Sounds fascinating, right? But before you get too excited, let's delve into a paradox that makes this whole idea more complicated than it seems. This paradox is called the grandfather paradox, and it challenges everything we think we know about time. Imagine you're a time traveler and you decide to visit the past. Now you might be thinking, what could possibly go wrong? But here's where things get tricky. What if, during your trip, you accidentally prevented your grandfather from meeting your grandmother? If that happened, you would never have been born, right? But wait, if you were never born, how could you have traveled back in time in the first place? This creates an endless loop of cause and effect, a cycle in which past, present, and future are intertwined in ways that seem impossible to unravel. If your existence in the past is erased, how could you possibly influence the past? It's a baffling contradiction that has puzzled philosophers, scientists, and storytellers for decades. And this isn't just a thought experiment invented for fun. The grandfather paradox exposes a major flaw in our understanding of time travel. If time travel is possible, how do we reconcile these paradoxes that seem to defy all logic? The very idea challenges our notions of reality, cause and effect, and the very fabric of time. The more you think about it, the more you realize encountering your future self could be more dangerous and confusing than you ever imagined. Meet your future self. Okay, let's imagine this. What if you could meet your future self? Imagine this. You're walking down a familiar street and see someone who looks just like you. At first, it's nothing more than a strange coincidence, but as the person gets closer, something about them feels different. There's a sense of wisdom, experience, and maybe even a hint of regret. Then you realize, you're seeing yourself but from the future. I know what you're thinking. This is fantasy, right? Time travel doesn't exist. But do me a favor for a moment. If you could sit down with your future self, what would the conversation be like? Would you ask about the decisions you've made so far? Or would you be more curious about what lies ahead? Meeting your future self could provide you with incredibly valuable insights. Imagine learning from all the mistakes you'll make or getting a glimpse of the successes you can look forward to. But here's the catch. Do you really want to know what's in store? Thinking about it brings a strange mix of excitement and fear. The idea of gaining foresight sounds fantastic. But the truth is, knowing the future could change the course of your life forever. Psychologists have actually studied this concept and believe that imagining a conversation with your future self could have real benefits for your current mindset. In fact, studies show that people who connect with their future selves tend to make decisions that align with their long-term goals. Imagine the power of being able to view your life through the lens of experience. You could make better decisions, live more intentionally, and potentially avoid regrets. But let's be honest, it's also a bit unsettling when you meet your future self. Would you like what you see? Would your future self be proud of the person you're becoming? Or would it offer advice on how to change your path before it's too late? This hypothetical scenario could cause you to rethink the way you approach every single decision in your life. The psychological effects of meeting your future self. Imagine sitting across from your future self. The conversation flows and you begin to ask questions about life, decisions, and regrets. But this is where it gets fascinating. Meeting your future self isn't just a fun mental exercise. It can also have profound effects on your current outlook on life. It's not just about the answers you might receive. It's about how you feel about them, and how your future actions might change as a result. You see, mentally connecting with your future self can be incredibly powerful. Psychologists have found that people who feel a strong connection to their future selves tend to make decisions that benefit them in the long run. That might mean saving money for retirement, committing to a healthier lifestyle, or choosing a career path that leads to fulfillment rather than offering only short-term rewards. Why? Because when you think about your future self, you're essentially putting yourself in the shoes of someone who has lived the consequences of your current decisions. The idea is that by imagining yourself in 10, 20, or even 50 years, you can gain a clearer perspective on your current decisions. It's like having a mentor who's been through it all. And this connection can help you make smarter decisions now, knowing they will impact your future happiness, health, and success. But let's be honest, it's not always an easy process. Sometimes the future version of you may not be the person you wanted to become. You may find that certain decisions or habits are leading you down a path you don't want to follow. This is where the power of reflection comes in. By engaging with your future self, you have the chance to change the course of your life before it's too late. The next time you're faced with a difficult decision, take a moment to imagine your future self. Ask them what they would do, what they wish they had done differently, and what advice they would give. This mental exercise can make all the difference in shaping your future. The grandfather paradox in popular culture. Time travel isn't just a theoretical concept, it's also a staple of science fiction, where countless stories explore the potential consequences of altering the past. The grandfather paradox is often woven into these narratives, providing authors with an interesting and sometimes confusing plot element. Let's look at how this paradox has appeared in popular culture. A classic example is Ray Bradbury's short story A Sound of Thunder. In the story, a time traveler goes back in time to hunt dinosaurs but accidentally kills a butterfly. When he returns to the present, everything has changed. The world is subtly, but significantly, different. This story illustrates the potential consequences of even the smallest change to the past, and the grandfather paradox is at the heart of this change. What seemed like an innocuous action in the past ultimately has a ripple effect that changes the future in unpredictable ways. Then there's the Back to the Future trilogy, which takes the grandfather paradox to a whole new level. Marty McFly, the protagonist, travels back in time and risks erasing his own existence by interfering with his parents' reunion. This creates a fascinating and risky situation in which Marty must repair the damage he caused to ensure he is still born. The franchise uses the paradox as a central theme, demonstrating the danger of interfering with time and the complexity of changing events in the past. But what makes these stories so compelling is that they don't just explore the paradox theoretically, they bring it to life. They show us what happens when you play with time, when you change something small and trigger a chain reaction that changes everything. In the world of science fiction, the grandfather paradox is a powerful tool for telling stories about the unpredictable consequences of time travel, and for asking us what we would really do if we could go back in time. In many ways, these stories serve as cautionary tales about the consequences of interfering with time. They remind us that while time travel seems like an exciting idea, the risks associated with it, particularly with regard to the grandfather paradox, are far greater than we might expect. Philosophical perspectives on time travel. Time travel has been the subject of intense debate among philosophers for centuries. The grandfather paradox in particular has sparked a fascinating discourse about the nature of time, causality, and reality. Some philosophers argue that time travel, particularly the idea of traveling back in time to change the past, is inherently flawed and logically impossible. They argue that if time travel were possible, it would lead to contradictions that cannot be resolved within our current understanding of reality. One of the most compelling arguments against time travel is the so-called causal loop. This concept proposes that if time travel were possible, we would encounter situations where events cause themselves, creating an infinite loop of cause and effect with no clear origin. The grandfather paradox is a perfect example. If you travel back in time to prevent your own birth, how could you even exist to travel back in time? This creates an infinite loop with no origin, which, according to some philosophers, makes time travel logically impossible. However, not all philosophers are so dismissive of this idea. This is where the many worlds hypothesis comes into play. This theory posits that when you travel back in time and alter an event, you don't erase the timeline you came from. Instead, you create a new parallel universe, one in which the event plays out differently. In this scenario, the paradox is avoided because the changes you make don't affect your original timeline. Essentially, you create an alternate reality that exists alongside the one you came from. This idea opens up a whole new world of possibilities for time travel, where paradoxes like the grandfather paradox can be avoided by creating multiple timelines. Some even claim that the universe itself has built-in mechanisms that prevent paradoxes from occurring. Whether through self-consistency or other unknown laws, these theories suggest that the universe would naturally correct itself to avoid the contradictions caused by time travel. Imagine a world where time travel were possible, but where paradoxes never truly unfold. This is a comforting thought, but it still leaves us with many unanswered questions about the true nature of time, causality, and the limits of human understanding. Accepting the paradox. So what can we learn from all this? The grandfather paradox, as paradoxical as it may seem, forces us to reconsider the nature of time, existence, and our choices. Even if time travel remains in the realm of science fiction for now, the paradox forces us to confront some of the deepest questions about our universe. If we could truly change the past, what would that mean for the present and the future? Would we even want that kind of power? Perhaps time travel isn't the real issue, but rather how it makes us reflect on our own lives. The idea of meeting our future selves or traveling back in time to change our past confronts us with the choices we make today. It forces us to consider how our actions, no matter how small, can affect time and influence the outcomes of our lives. It reminds us that every moment is precious, and that the future we create depends on the choices we make in the present. And perhaps that's the true gift of time travel, whether through the lens of science fiction or philosophical thought experiments. It encourages us to live more thoughtfully, consciously, and with awareness of the impact we have on the world around us. After all, we may not yet be able to travel through time, but we can certainly shape the future with every choice we make today. Whether you're fascinated by the grandfather paradox or simply pondering the possibility of meeting your future self, the real mystery isn't time travel itself, but how we navigate life's journey and the choices that determine our destinies. So the next time you find yourself thinking about the future, ask yourself this: what would my future self think of the choices I'm making right now? And how might they lead me down a better path? This idea is worth exploring, even if time travel is still just a dream. Thanks for joining me on this mind-boggling journey through time and the grandfather paradox. If you've ever wondered what the consequences of meeting your future self would be, I hope this sparked some interesting thoughts. Don't forget to like us, subscribe, and click the bell icon for more fascinating explorations of the unknown here at InnoVision Tech. What do you think about time travel? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Stay curious until next time.